Welcome to Chronic Boss Unfiltered. I'm your host, Lily Stairs, and today we have joining us the incredible Indy Lee. Indy is a clean beauty maven and pioneer, a dear friend, and someone I know through our work together on the board of the Autoimmune Association. She's like a warm hug and a breath of fresh air, all rolled into one, and is truly the embodiment of what it means to be a chronic boss. Indy, I am so thrilled you're here today.
Are you kidding me? I am so honored to be here with you today, or any day I get to spend with you.
You're the best. Okay, so let's just jump right in.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your diagnosis journey and how you got to where you are today.
Of course, it's interesting when I look back on it and I think about everything I've gone through. I felt very lucky that, I got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis immediately. But what I've come to learn is I had so many other autoimmune issues going on that were unchecked because no one actually noticed them. And
Um,
so I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis in 2008. I couldn't open and close my hands. I couldn't put my shoes on because my feet were so swollen. It was painful to walk. To be honest, I thought that I might have Lyme disease because I was working in my greenhouse and a farm that I put under production. And I went to the doctor and said, I think I have Lyme. Let's get me tested so I can get on medication, etc. And he said, this is more presenting like rheumatoid arthritis. And I'm like, I'm too young. What are you talking about? Not realizing it's not an old person's disease whatsoever. And I immediately went to a rheumatologist and was indeed diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. Very rare because certainly, as you know, Lily, it can take anywhere from 4 to 6 to 9 years for some people to get a diagnosis. So for me to have that right away was so unique. But then 6 months later, I started losing my vision and got diagnosed with another autoimmune disease. And that's obviously my brain tumor. And we can go into how that all transpired. But it's interesting because those issues were so concrete and diagnosed right away. But it wasn't until years later that we realized that no, it wasn't that my brain tumor had caused me to stop getting my period. It was actually, I went into ovarian failure because of rheumatoid arthritis. Both my children, I went to labor with them on 20 weeks and 28 weeks. Now, I carried them full term to 37 weeks, but the fact that my body was fighting about keeping them in, we've now come to realize that it was autoimmune related. Emily was a twin. I lost a twin, autoimmune related. So it's interesting because a lot of the autoimmune issues went unchecked for so long. So I've had an interesting journey of learning things that were autoimmune related. And then, so some were diagnosed like this, like Crohn's. I went a year. Someone said, oh, it's nothing. And then I went for my second colonoscopy and they're like, what are you talking about? It's not nothing. That's why you have uveitis. You have Crohn's. So it's really interesting. I've had a very mixed bag in terms of diagnosis and time.
Yeah, you really have. And you've been on this journey with a lot of challenging points that you've experienced. And then to your point, getting diagnosed pretty quickly is not as common,
No.
but it's still challenging to be going through that process. And so I'd like to zero in too on when you were diagnosed with the brain tumor. What was going on? Because you weren't given very long to live. Is that right?
No. Yeah, it's crazy. So there I was, June of 2008, diagnosed with RA, went on methotrexate, did the whole, started doing that. And by the way, I am not knocking medicine by any stretch of the imagination. I'm on Entyvio and can't imagine not being on it with Crohn's. But it absolutely, methotrexate completely transformed. I went from barely being able to open and close my hands to able to function completely. So I was like, boom, I'm okay. Can't necessarily work on the farm, can't necessarily work in the greenhouse because of humid conditions, etc. But I was living and thriving.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I started to lose my vision. And so what had happened, like from a business standpoint, bringing in the boss part of the chronic, I left HBO, had an incredible career, had a beautiful career, traveled all over the world, left to spend more time with my kids, got involved with the farm to table movement, built a very large greenhouse in my backyard, was teaching children in schools about school gardening, etc., edible flowers to whole foods, you name it, was very involved. Diagnosed with RA, couldn't do it anymore. What am I going to do with this? A lot of calendula, 12 different varieties of lavender. I'm like, so now she's pregnant. And I'm like, I'm going to make products for my nephew. And so started doing that. And then all of a sudden realized that I was starting to lose vision out of my left eye. And I was like, okay, what's going on? Went to the doctor. He immediately sent me for scans. And 45 minutes later, he said, you need to come in. And I'm like, oh, yeah, what's going on? He said, I'd rather talk to you in person. And you and I both know that's never the good sign. And I said, listen, I'm going to go to Google or WebMD and become my own doctor if you don't tell me what's going on. And he said, you promise you're coming in? I'm like, of course, keys are in my hand. He said, you have a brain tumor. I said, I'll see you in 15 minutes. I mean, I've done so many podcasts and talked about this on so many interviews. And I think I went into overdrive, and it was just so hard because I think when most people are given that type of diagnosis, they go to a very dark place. I didn't. I got into the car. It was a beautiful full day. And it was like I was going to the optometrist and he was checking if it's A or B or C lens, and everything clicked into place. And I realized this was happening for a reason. My job was to let it unfold, but that I was never going to allow myself to be a passenger in my life, which I'd been for 37 years, but that I would be the driver and that something incredibly powerful would come out of this. So it's a very powerful diagnosis for me and not a negative. Maybe it's my chronic optimism. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was the most powerful day of my life that I'm forever grateful for.
What a reframe that probably a lot of people would not have that reaction when they are told they've been diagnosed with a brain tumor. It really does, as the story goes, it sounds like it really led you into your passion and your purpose. And so I'd love to hear a little bit more about how these diagnoses and your brain tumor in particular, how did it influence your decision to launch a business in the clean
Sure.
beauty
Because
space?
it's not typical. Most
No.
people know. So by the time I went to the doctor, got there 15 minutes later, he was a little in shock that I was like, okay, what do we have? And I wasn't doom and gloom. And he said, are you okay? I said, absolutely. I had a very powerful drive over with myself. What do we got? He said, I don't know. It doesn't look like cancer. And we know it's not. And he said, but you need to go see some heavy hitters. So, Duke, Johns Hopkins, NIH, Sloan Kettering. And I was being told you can have as little as 6 months to live. And I was like, no, no. Oh, heck no, that's not happening. When I went to my neuroendocrinologist, who was very progressive for his time, because this was 2008, and I said, how is this possible? Nobody in my family has this. He said, well, we're seeing more and more of these things being tied to the environment. Now, of
Mm.
course, I didn't go, oh, autoimmune. I'm just like, what are you talking about, environment? I eat out of an organic greenhouse in my backyard. And he said, well, that's part of the environment. What you breathe is part of your environment. Around yourself is part of your environment. He said, let me ask you a question. What do you put on your skin? What did your mother put on her skin when she was pregnant? And I was like, what the actual heck? Like, are you kidding me? Are you like, this is not possible. What do you mean what my mother put on her skin? And in that moment, I realized when I created this little line for my sister using ingredients, because I didn't want anything to go on my nephew, and everyone said, Indy, you need to start a baby line. I'm like, that's not a thing. And then I realized it is a thing, but it's way bigger than just baby products. I need to go and create change in this industry because I knew there was very little regulation. I knew what was happening with babies being born with a toxic load. I knew epigenetically that what we're putting in our skin could have a very powerful impact on generations to come. And it was that spark, that aha moment that I realized my time here is to create a line that was safe, that was effective, that looked beautiful on a shelf because it didn't back then. But more importantly, I wanted to spend the rest of my life educating and empowering people about what they're putting in and on their body. And so I left and I turned to my best friend who was sitting in the waiting room and I said, she's like, so what did he say? And I go, oh, we're going to start a skincare line. And she's like, that's what he said. I'm like, no, environmental. It's probably autoimmune at that point. I was like, we're going to create a skincare line. It's going to be safe. It's going to be effective. I'm going to talk about this. And she looked at me and she goes, you know nothing about the beauty industry. And I go, yep. So how hard could it be? Ignorance is bliss. And I started the line. I sold all my jewelry, emptied my 401k, and spent, whatever time I wasn't looking for a different diagnosis and prognosis or being with my kids. I spent researching and talking to experts, dermatologists, aromatherapists, everybody I could, chemists, about beauty and how I can create this line. It's pretty incredible.
It's powerful. It is powerful and that's who you are, Indy. That is your essence and your being, that you're the person who you heard this diagnosis and your instinct was, how can I help other people? Because that's what this
100%.
boils down to. And you were also really a trailblazer in this, at the forefront of the clean beauty movement, which is now huge.
It's incredible. Like, I did not think when I started this that I would be creating change in the industry. Like, honestly, I said I did, but I don't know that I actually believed I could. But that just goes to what a woman can do when she's on a transformative mission that is purpose driven and extremely passionate. And so I was lucky. I found a doctor who was willing to do surgery on April
Mhm.
22nd, which is Earth Day. So I figured that was another good sign from the universe. And, I walked to the surgical suite and said, today's a great day to live. Put on some kick tush. I used a different word, music, and let's go.
I love it.
I was like, I'm here for a reason. And it was interesting. The anesthesiologist turned around and he asked me if I had been drinking, if I maybe took some recreational drugs before I walked in, because he's never seen anybody quite so positive walking into brain surgery. I was like, no, 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 no. I'm on a mission. Let's go.
You're
And when
on
I
a
went to
mission.
sleep, I couldn't see out of my eye. When I woke up, I could see everything. And that's when the doctor said, we got it all. Welcome to the rest of your life. And then I turned on the website 2 months later.
What a story. And it goes to show that we are capable of what we set our minds to. And you're such a beautiful example of that. And I just love how from the beginning, you have made the decision to integrate your story as a patient. So your experiences, your diagnoses, your health journey, that has been a part of your story as a business owner. In Chronic Boss, a lot of what we talk about is this power of owning that story. And so I'd love to hear what guided your choice to lead with that authenticity, and what do you think it has unlocked for you as a founder and an advocate?
It's a really great question that nobody's ever asked me. I think that for me, it was, if I'm going through this, other people must be going through this. And how can I create a community that's on the same transformational journey? Right. And showing what is possible. But I think so often there's a lack of transparency. I won't say authenticity, but there is sometimes a lack of transparency. Like, there's a line. And I think when I say, when you go below the line and you really let people into those inner places and you're willing to be vulnerable, there's a deeper emotional connection that can be created. And that's what I was more interested in, is creating that deep emotional connection and saying, yes, I had this, but it's not just this that I had. Like, I have other health issues. Maybe you have them. This is what, and will never say, oh, this product is going to do this for that. That's not what it is. It's just sharing that I can create something and still be a chronic boss and still be powerful, but still have very bad days, still be very sick. And and it's okay. And that doesn't mean that our diagnoses is, I don't want to say it's when I say life sentence, I don't mean like in the negative way. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that your life stops. It just
Yes.
means it starts, but it just starts differently. And you've got to find that positive, because listen, the truth is, we don't know how long we have on this sphere that's hurtling through space. Let's make the most of it with joy and optimism and care for one another. That's kind of how I approached it. And that was the decision. I wanted to find like-minded people. And then I started doing the research and I realized there are so many like me. Let's create this movement of change.
Yes. And so what I'm hearing is that you leading with vulnerability was really an asset to you personally, but also your business.
Yeah, I didn't know it at the time. I'll be honest. That part was really about me.
Yeah.
Just finding some other people, but it turned out to be a beautiful asset that I get to share. And you know what? It allows me to say, I'm not having a good day. It allows me to be completely transparent at all times.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's been an asset for the brand, but it's been a great asset for me. And I think that it creates some long lasting relationships too, as a result.
It does, because when you meet at a point of vulnerability, when you connect with people, when you're each being vulnerable, that is what creates those deep lasting connections, both on a personal level and from a brand perspective. When we think about how we're in this age of so much content coming at us I don't know the stats, but it's crazy how much content we're consuming every day, right? And so having that deep, authentic, transparent content is what sticks and what resonates.
Exactly. And I also think there is that element that listen, I'm talking to somebody who knows a heck of a lot more than I do, even on autoimmune. But we both know that 2/3 of autoimmune diseases are oftentimes environmentally derived, and we don't necessarily know what that pinpoint those could be. And it could be different things for different people. But I'm going to do my darn best to make sure that I'm not further harming others.
Yeah. And
You know
you've
what I
done
mean?
an
Like,
amazing. Yeah.
that's important for me. It's like I always said, I want to leave this planet a little bit better than when I came, but I never want to do any harm to anyone, whether it's the planet, the animals, or ourselves. And so that really is part of the ethos of how we formulate, and I think there's more to be done in that space too.
Oh, you're just getting started. I know it. And you've already
Exactly.
done so much. So let's talk a little bit about your journey in entrepreneurship with chronic illness. We have a lot of our members and listeners who are entrepreneurs, or maybe they have a side hustle while they're working corporate. And there's definitely a unique set of challenges that come with managing these chronic conditions while also being an entrepreneur and doing all the things. So, what are some of the unique challenges that you faced? And what are your like hot tips and tricks for addressing them to actually make your business work for you and your body?
Well, in the past, a lot of it was, I was traveling. There was a year where I think I traveled every week from March to August, and it wasn't
Oh,
vacation. And so it was a different plane, a different time zone, all those things. So managing it was things like building in extra time for travel, not so I can sightsee, but so my body can acclimate. It
mm,
is setting boundaries, which, by the way, I'm still struggle with because I want to do all, be all, can't. But being honest, when I hit that wall, I've hit that wall and that I can't do these things. It's also realizing that I've got to look and see where I'm staying and what food is going to be better for nourishing my body and
mm,
where is that even in proximity to where I'm staying. Little things like that actually matter. Packing healthy snacks for myself so that on the go, so I'm not eating crap on the plane or in between going to eventing and things like that. So I think those are very real things, but it's also putting boundaries for yourself when you are an entrepreneur of what you can do and what you can't do. And what I've realized is sleep is a non-negotiable,
mm.
especially with chronic illnesses, and creating the perfect day for myself from the onset. I will say I was really good about it until I was really bad about it. And when I was really bad about it, as you know, I wound up back in the hospital with brain surgery again. So I know how difficult it can be for entrepreneurs. So please know I'm not saying, I can always walk the walk and talk the talk. I was talking the talk, but I wasn't walking it. And it's when I did that my body said, "Oh, yo, girl, I'm going to put you in check right now." I do understand how difficult that can be when you're starting a business. But I will tell you now, I was very clear about what my boundaries are in terms of my work-life balance, in terms of I'm not doing this. I'm not traveling every week anymore. Seven, like having those boundaries are very important to establish from the get-go
Mm.
because it's very easy to erode at it. And I'm speaking from experience.
Oh, absolutely. And I hear the internal struggle because I have this too around boundaries and what we're saying yes to, what we're saying no to. How do you make those decisions? How do you decide what's yes and what you're going to let go of to take care of your health?
I will say I have a really good support system, and I highly recommend this for all entrepreneurs. Actually, I recommend this for anybody. Have people who are going to be devastatingly honest with you. So, for example, and I wrote about this the other day, I said to my husband, I think that asking for help is a superpower. Like, that's my superpower. And he said, no, your superpower these days is asking other people how you can help them. It's time to put that in check. And I was like, whoa,
Wow.
he was absolutely right. And so I think it is having people who are going to call you out when you think you're doing a really good job, but you're not even paying attention because it's very easy to slip, right? It's that little
Yeah.
thing, you know what, I'm just going to do it this time. Oh, I'm just going to do it that time. Oh, and then before you know it, the boundaries are gone and you're off and running and in full flare. I would say having a really good tribe to surround yourself. My best friend does it to me all the time. She's like, yo, no. Lily, I caught myself today. Perfect example. I was asked to do something that I really would have loved to do, but I took the day off because I needed to do some things for myself, including going to the doctors, which is a challenge when you have autoimmune. You feel like every day you're going to the doctor and how are you
Oh my
supposed to
God.
work?
Yep.
Instead of doing that thing, I realized the most important thing I can do to be successful and to be the best version of myself for myself and for my family is by honoring the fact that I put that out of office for a reason and not trying to push those appointments out. I think it's being honest with yourself, whether it's putting a post-it like boundaries or having a tribe that says you're not being really good about the boundaries you thought you established and calling you out on it.
I love that. Having these accountability partners to say, hey,
You think you're doing kick ass, but you really aren't.
yeah, totally. And I'll add to that because I recently had this discussion, but it was with my therapist. So a therapist is a great part of
Oh,
your team too,
100%. I go for
right?
channels.
Yes. And so we were talking about how she said she wants me to read this book called The Relaxed Woman, which I've ordered and it's sitting in my Amazon locker downstairs. So we'll see if I get to it. But it's supposed to be really good. And the idea is I was talking to her. I said, oh my God, I feel like I'm running a million miles a minute and I'm just constantly working and I love my work. But now I feel like I'm losing these other parts of my life because I'm not spending enough time or because I'm spending too much time in work. And so, she was kind of helping me do that check and say, all right, we've got to get some tools and resources in your tool belt so that you can call on those things and not get so consumed by your work. And I think that's something that for us as entrepreneurs, when we're really passionate, we can just get sucked in to
Very easy.
keep going, keep going, keep going. And it's not good for our mental health, our physical health, and our families and friends and the other obligations that we have in our life.
Well, I think part of the problem is the culture that we have now, right? We are in hustle culture. Everybody's got to have a side hustle. You got to have this, you have that. Now, please know, I realize most of it is because life has gotten so expensive, just in general. Then try to have autoimmune issues on top of it. And it has gotten to the point where you can barely scratch. So everyone's trying to have these additional, they say passive, it isn't passive income and these side hustles to bring in this. And what you're doing is you're actually burning yourself out and you're not able, you can't do everything and be everything to everybody. I always say you can do everything you ever dreamed of in the world and go for it, but you can't do it all at the same time. And so you really need to be honest about where your priorities are, what boundaries you set. And I always say, at the end of the week, do a check-in and say, did I hit that? What is important for me to be okay and be the best version of myself? And then I also am starting to say, okay, this is my list. What is not going to realistically happen? Take it off the list, put it for the following week or next month. But if you keep having it right there, you're going to continue to burn yourself out because you think you have to get it done.
Ooh, I love that. I love that. You're giving yourself a boundary.
You're
saying it's okay. You have to. And I had a boss, one of my first bosses when I started working, who said, there's always going to be more on our to-do lists. It's okay. Get the most pressing things done. And then know that you're going to come in tomorrow and there will be more to do. And next week there will be more to do, but it doesn't need to all get done at once, right? Which was really great advice.
But it's hard because we're now in a society that promotes continually working. And if you're not working, then all of a sudden you pick up your phone and you get sucked into the scroll mentality. And then you go into the comparison game and you fall down this very slippery slope instead of saying, you know what, this is me time. I'm putting the phone away. I'm going for a walk. I'm going to make myself a healthy meal. I'm going to read the book on how you can relax. All those things that we want to do, which is important for us.
So important. Okay. You brought up the comparison game and let's just talk about this for a minute because I think so many of us, myself included, just so easily get sucked into this. Oh my God, look at what they're doing. I should be doing that. We're not far enough along in our business, or I don't dress as cool as that person dresses, or it's endless. So what are you doing? I feel like you're so good with self-care. And I'm curious how you, and as a strong businesswoman and owner, how do you stop the comparison game?
I unfollowed. I am realizing when I get into this comparison, am I comparing because I'm inspired or am I comparing because I'm measuring myself and my self-worth against this? And if I do it more than once on a specific profile, then I know it's not healthy it's not good mental health. So I hit the unfollow button.
Hit the unfollow. I love that.
Yeah. You know what? Most of the time they're probably not following us. So it's not like I'm like, oh. And then if it's somebody who I'm friends with, I have to say, what is this trigger within me that I can reframe, stop, etc., so that I can have a healthy boundary, or I just mute it. So I'm still following and I mute it. I find that social media can really be one of those tools that can take us down. and we can become addicted to. And I
Mhm.
realized it's not healthy financially for me because I feel like I have to have things in order to be happy. And by the way, I know things don't ever make you happy, only we can make ourselves happy. But we do that. We do the comparison game. And so it's a very quick unfollow because it's not healthy
Unfollow?
for me.
Preach. Indy, I love this. I've got some unfollows that I need to do
I get it. You could always go and check them out, but that doesn't have to be fed into
into
the
your
scroll.
feed. Right, right. Exactly. Exactly. Okay. Amazing advice. You dropped so many gems in that whole segment right there. I'm so excited. Okay. I want to talk a little bit selfishly now. I want to talk a little bit about pioneering in an emerging industry because you are really a clean beauty pioneer before clean beauty was a category. And here at Chronic Boss, we're building in what we call, and actually one of our members, Michelle Irving, who's amazing and building within it too, the chronic economy. And this is a space that really isn't well defined, but as we've discussed, there's a freaking lot of us. There's a lot of us who are living with chronic conditions who are spending money on those chronic conditions.
Yeah.
And so, what was it like for you to break into an industry that didn't really exist yet? Like, how did you educate people? How did you navigate investors when something wasn't mainstream?
I think it was, people aren't going to love this answer, but I'm going to give it to you because it's the truth.
Yeah.
Ignorance was bliss. I just didn't know better. I also I came from a place of doing it because it was the right thing to do. And I knew other people needed this, right? I knew about babies, like I said, being born with a toxic load. I knew about transdermal absorption. I knew all these things and it wasn't okay. And so I was like, this is my stake in the ground. Became a little bit myopic in that I wasn't going to let the noise, because let's face it, my family thought I was crazy. People are like, how's your little hobby going? Like very much that, like, oh, that's nice, patting me on the head type of thing. And I was like, I had to put blinders on and cut out the noise because I knew the noise would distract me from achievement. And I think that's something that as you're pioneering, you're going to have a lot of, there's no way you can do this. This is ridiculous. But that's not why you're doing it. You're not doing it because of what other people think. You're doing it because you know in your heart that it's the right thing to do. And there are other people who either need this or going through it, or it solves a problem, or you want to create change, right? So there's a lot, like I said, it's purpose driven. I think being myopic in that case is very important. I'm not saying you shouldn't look at the signs when people say this is like there's no proof of concept. But once you know there is, you got to go all in. And I
And you
think
did.
that's part of it. And I did. And I think that was the benefit. I will also say you need to be realistic. They say it takes 10 years to be an overnight success. 10 years, people. Please know I didn't take a salary for like 10 years. I think
Wow.
8 was actually like the actual 8 years from building the company and thinking about it to actually taking a paycheck. And there was money going out the door. So I just be very clear about that. I think that people think that all of a sudden you build it and it's going to come. That is really not how that happens. It's just a very small fraction. Again, it's that comparison game. The issue is we're not taught to speak about this. We're not taught to say, I would almost lost everything. And that even when you're invested in, that doesn't mean everything goes right. My company was acquired. That didn't mean there was a cash windfall for me. I mean, I've been very honest. I lost my house. I did all those things for the pursuit of creating change in the industry.
Indy, thank you for being so honest and transparent and having this really raw conversation because people need to hear this and understand it. We are so trained now, again, with social media to see these quote unquote overnight successes and think, why isn't my business making millions of dollars right away? It takes a lot of hard work and sleepless nights and no paychecks and making trade-offs. And it's not easy.
No, it's not for the
Not
faint of
easy.
heart.
Not for the faint of heart.
But it doesn't mean you shouldn't go for it. I
Yeah.
just want people always to think eyes wide open, cut out the noise, know what you're going to do, know what your boundaries are financially and all those things, and go for it. But you have to go for it in a smart way and realize it's not all of a sudden you build it and people will come. Proof of concept isn't that I sold something. Proof of concept is you have a $5 million business. Now go raise capital. And I think that's often what people miss or don't understand. And then even though you get it, it doesn't mean that there's all of a sudden a windfall. People are giving you money. They're going to want something in exchange for it. And
Right.
oftentimes that's equity, etc. So that's a whole nother podcast on itself.
Oh my goodness. Yes, yes, it is. But this is important to hear and also a reminder to keep going. When you look at
Yeah.
it, it was 8 years, right? Until you
Mhm.
you got that first saw some return. That's a long time of putting in that hard work.
Long time.
That's a long time. And so a reminder to everyone, keep going, keep pushing because it can happen, but it's not going to necessarily happen overnight.
Absolutely. And there's no guarantees. And I
Yeah.
just think that we need to start being very honest about these things instead of the highlight reel
Yeah.
because we need to level set expectations. And I think that it gets extremely complicated when you add on having a chronic illness.
Mm,
Because the truth of the matter is, we know it is very, very, very expensive. Unfortunately, the medical system is not set up to support us.
that's right. That's right. And so it is, and you have to make decisions. This is when the your health comes into play, where sometimes it's okay to also let go if you're building something
Absolutely.
and you need to prioritize you and your health and maybe even a job or something that's going to allow you to have health insurance. That's okay
Absolutely.
too. Because all of these experiences also we learn and grow. If your business doesn't make it, I bet you learned a hell of a lot trying to build it,
Absolutely.
right?
And that's
Yeah.
like, we also have to be very honest about what does failure really mean, right? So you fail.
Mm,
You can spin that. Did you fail or did you learn that really important nugget that is going to allow whatever else you're going to do in your life to be exponentially greater from that one quote unquote failure?
I love that spin. That's what it's all about. This is again going back to that concept of owning your narrative and
Yeah,
owning, yeah, I have these diagnoses, but look at what it allows me to do. Look at the person it's made me. Look at how
exactly.
resilient, flexible, and adaptive I am because of these conditions I am living with.
100%. 100%. It could be your strength, not
Your
your
strength.
downfall. You just have to be mindful that sometimes you can't do it. Like it
Yes.
may not be that thing, but that doesn't mean the other thing. Maybe that's the calling. Like maybe that setback is actually the catapult forward, just in a different direction you weren't realizing.
Indy, you have such a way with words. I love it. Okay, so talking about strength, actually, this is you gave me this perfect transition. So thank you.
Oh, good.
Love it. So, one thing that we talk about a lot also at Chronic Boss is this concept of a secret sauce. And that is taking a skill that you have, so a concrete skill, finance, branding, marketing, problem solving, and marrying it with your superpower, which is something that you've gained from living with a chronic condition. It could be a perspective, it could be, an insight, and then putting those two together to create your secret sauce. And I know that you, Indy, have got probably a lot of different combinations of this that we could roll with. What do you think your Chronic Boss secret sauce is? If you had to pick your skill and your superpower, and how does it result in your secret sauce?
I think changes over time.
Mm,
I used to think it was that my secret sauce was that I wasn't afraid to ask for help. I realized I suck at that now. But I think it's my ability to connect with people on a very vulnerable basis and to
mhm.
make people feel safe. And I think when you look within and you're like, well, how does that translate into the beauty industry? What is the beauty industry all about? It's about confidence. It's about feeling good in your own skin. And I think being able to be vulnerable and create that connection and that safety allows people to realize that they do have the power within them and they're beautiful in and of themselves. And so I think that's part of my secret sauce. I also have
Cool.
then realized another talent that I was told that I didn't have that we talked about is writing. I didn't even know.
Yeah.
I was told I was a terrible writer for 8 years. Like, oh, you're not that great of a writer. No. And now people are like, I love the way you write.
Oh my God, you are such an amazing writer. I'm going to put your secret sauce together. So, your skill, and now this is just one of your secret sauces. So, I'm going to say skill, I'm giving you the writing branding, right? Like you
Mhm.
are a branding wizard, branding marketing wizard, but at the core of that is writing, being able to communicate with powerful
Communication.
words. Yeah. Your secret sauce, your superpower comes from your lived experience with chronic conditions and it really allowed you to achieve this deeper level of vulnerability and connection. And so that has resulted, your secret sauce is that you're a brilliant communicator who connects with her audience on a level that's
You make me
magnetizing.
cry, Lily.
This is you. This is Indy. And this is the power. And we like to share this because we want to help other people, other listeners, other chronic bosses think about how they can pair their skill that they have with something they've learned from their chronic illness and reframe it to own your narrative and say, hey, this is my secret sauce in the workplace.
Thank you.
That's you. That's you. So, all right, Indy,
Yes, love.
the writer. I'm loving the indie edit. It's the indie edit, right? On your Substack. So good. So you recently wrote a piece that was about how you're getting back to these different parts of yourself that you feel like you lost over time and that really make you who you are. And so can you tell me a little bit more about that?
I would love to. First, thank you for reading it. I realized that I allowed myself to be silenced. Please know I need to own that, right? No one put a gag to me. I allowed it over time. And with it and with the business and trying to, make sure that I was taking care of the business and all that stuff, I lost pieces of myself. I allowed myself to shrink, to be very honest. And I'm now at a place, both mentally, physically, and business wise, having this new ownership, right? That has said, Indy, we want to support this. You are the brand. We want to support you. And we think you write beautifully. We think you should embrace the fact that you're gardening again. Share that part with everybody. Don't hold it back. It has given me the space to reconnect with my self. So many parts that were gone. It's just been so incredible because I'm stepping into a very different power. Now realize there's also, 17 years, 16 years between diagnosis with the brain tumor and where I am now. I'm a very different person. I'm 53. I'm not 37. Like there's just a lot more that comes with that. But when you start to realize what you turned off as a result of what other people told you, and then you allowed yourself to go there, you realize that I kind of feel like some of my illnesses was my body screaming, speak up, let it out. And now I'm starting to reconnect with that. And so I'm stepping into a very different, powerful place that I've never been before, which is so cool. And also my children are older, so I can do these things. So before I had children, I loved to bake. I love to bake. But then I had children and baking is very exact and I didn't have time, and blah, 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 blah. And I decided to start a business and I started baking again. It started with one sourdough loaf. It's so funny. And my friend's like, I've never seen anybody be able to take this right away. And I was like, oh, I used to bake. And my husband's like, you used to bake a lot. And all of a sudden I started baking again. And the business is we're really honing into my love of gardening. And so, as you know, Lily, we bought a house that, we lost our house and we were renting and we had this opportunity to buy this land that was basically untouched, dilapidated, overgrown. And my husband's like, I have a vision. I was like, let's go for it. And we built this beautiful house that is centered around my healing, but also about gardening. And so out in the garden, I'm reconnecting with that part, which is then reigniting my creative part of my brain that I lost touch with, and writing again and feeling again and expressing myself in ways that I forgot. So it's just been incredible. And so I said, can I do a Substack? I literally asked, can I do a Substack? And they're like, why are you asking us? And I was like, well, my name. And they're like, Indy, go. Yes. Talk about what has happened to you. It's okay. There is no gag. There's nothing. We want all of you to be out there and you can share whatever you feel comfortable share. And that's a really interesting place for me to be for, but it has allowed this other side of me to just be like the spark ignited. I can't even express it, but it's so exciting.
Yay! Well, okay. So how for other people, because I think this is really relatable, we can easily lose ourselves in work or our illness or you name it, any part of our life. For people who want to reconnect back with other parts of their life or identities or hobbies or what have you, what are your recommendation for how they go about doing that?
I will tell you what everybody says, and I do think it helps, but it's not what necessary. I think journaling does have a place in this, right? I think just getting things out on paper is really important, or literally just getting things out and mind dumping, because when you start to do that, you start to see things a lot clearer. Now, I will say I've tried journaling. I'm not phenomenal. I'm not consistent at it. But what I am consistent with is my meditation practice. And so that has allowed me to clear out the noise and connect with what is important to me. I consider it like I'm journaling in my head because I literally will have this random, like meditation, most people feel is like you can't think of anything, but that's actually not the point. It is for these things to bubble up, but to get to a space. Journaling is pen to paper, so you quiet everything out. I'm able to meditate enough where I can now quiet things out. But I've been meditating for close to 20 years. So please know, like, it takes time. So I think journaling is a great, easy way to do it. I think therapy is another way. My point is, I don't think there's just one way. I think that you write down some of the things that you love to do or what brings you joy or what you do that all of a sudden you feel like that a little spark, you know?
Yeah.
And then write all of them down and find one of those and just try doing it for 15 minutes, you know? You'll see what comes up. But I think the important thing, there isn't one way. Everybody could be singing for some people, you know, and like they're just singing along with the radio and one thing connects with them. And then I know people who then connected with other parts of their lives, not necessarily music, but it just allows you to quiet the noise in your head, which is, I got to get this done, but then I have to pick up my dry cleaning, but then I got to do that. Wait, that deadline's due, but I really want that. Oh my God, I'm not here yet. You've got to find a way to quiet that so you can let what nourishes your soul in and then just do it. Take some time to do it.
Indy with all the tips. I'm loving this. And I hope that this is like a lot of different ways for people, though, to come in and reconnect. So I hope that if you're somebody who wants to reconnect with a part of yourself or hobby or something that you feel you've lost, Indy's recommendations
Embrace your
are
inner child.
Embrace your inner child. I like that. Indy, oh my gosh, I could talk to you all day. You just have the best insights and you speak with such authenticity and heart. And we're just so lucky to have you here. Okay, so tell us, where can people find you? How can people stay in touch with you?
I will say Instagram is probably a really good place. My personal Instagram is Indie Lee, INDIELEE. That's a great place to like connect, leave me a message. Nobody else is in my DMs. The brand one is great, Indie_Lee. But if you want to reach me, that's where to do it. And I would say Substack now also, the Indie Edit is another great place because I'm spending a lot of time. I find that that is a very unique platform. I'm just finding it so refreshing. I find that there's so much wisdom. There's so many real different connections than the scroll because you've got to read people's words and hear what's going on in their life. And I just find that that's really beautiful.
Okay, so everybody go follow Indy on Substack, the Indie Edit. Check out our Instagram. We will drop it in the show notes. Indy. So of course, I have to end our podcast by asking you, what does being a chronic boss mean to you?
You know, I purposely don't look at these a lot of questions because I always like it to come out authentically. And for me, it means perseverance. It means continuing to go despite the noise, despite sometimes the pain, but it means perseverance and not ever stopping in pursuit of your dreams.
Couldn't think of a more perfect way to end. Indy, thank you for being here. Thank you for giving us your time and being so generous with your insights. I know our listeners will feel the same warmth and encouragement that I always feel when I'm in your presence. And so thank you for showing us what's possible.
Listen, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. And Lily, thank you for showing us all what's possible.
Thank you, Indy. Thanks, everyone.
Love you.